I'm joined now by Michael Clyne, an analyst focusing on issues in Africa. And I want to get your reaction to this report by Amnesty International, because it is getting a bit of press, isn't it?
Yeah, it's thankfully drawing attention back to Darfur and Sudan, something that was one of the first rallying cries of the internet age, really drew public attention to the Save Darfur campaign, led the International Criminal Court to its first indictment of a sitting head of state and one of the world's largest peacekeeping missions. But flash forward about 13 years, public attention has been diverted. In some ways, the ICC, International Criminal Court, hasn't been able to bring Bashir in, and even the peacekeeping mission is being drawn down to pick up other conflicts in the world.
What about monitoring this region? Is it difficult to do so? I mean, talk to us a little bit about it.
This is a very remote region in central Darfur, and the Amnesty report was done remotely because they do not have access themselves to it for a few reasons. Number one, it's very insecure. There are aerial bombardments. It's very remote, no infrastructure, and the government restricts access to a very few amount of people. So they're going to need to get both investigators in there to ascertain whether these allegations are really true with the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, as well as reintroduce UN peacekeepers if there's going to be progress.
You mentioned attention span. It seems like our attention span shifts. Of course, the Syria crisis has really dominated the news, the migrant crisis, and this has kind of been left out. Is there enough being done on the international stage, and what more can be done when it comes to Darfur?
Well, that's right. I hate to think that public consciousness is a zero-sum game, but I think there is some reckoning there between ongoing conflicts in Sudan and other places in Africa, Syria, Yemen, other parts of the world that have seen a proliferation over the past decade. Just like the Save Darfur campaign 13 years ago was rooted in public awareness, I think it's going to take that again to mobilize the international community, drive some AU member or African nations to pursue Bashir, which saw public opinion turning in that direction somewhat in South Africa after they let him get away, and also to push the UN Security Council conversation, which actually just took place today, where Sudan is trying to boast that the Darfur conflict is under control with some iterant ceasefires that really don't mean much on the ground, and that therefore they deserve to draw down peacekeeping troops and take over security themselves.
You brought it up, Bashir, a sitting president, 2 arrest warrants out for him, and yet nothing's happened. What are your thoughts on that, and why?
It shows the rather impotence of the International Criminal Court in a region where, for maybe some obvious reasons, a lot of states have not signed on to the Rome Convention that implements its indictments. There is some optimism that even though he got away in South Africa, a South African group successfully sued the government to decry that ex post facto as an illegal, that they did not arrest him. But it's going to take more buy-in from African states if he's ever going to be brought to justice in Europe.
Yeah, I heard the word optimism thrown out there. Are you optimistic about the future for Darfur, or what are your thoughts? I mean, we've seen this languish for so long. What needs to happen?
I think if we remember that just because we turn away from something, just because there's not video on the television or the news, that something doesn't stop happening.
And that's what's needed. Well, Michael, thanks so much for coming in and talking to us. Certainly appreciate it.
Thanks for bringing attention to this issue, Mike.